All right, so let's talk about personal interests and passions, and specifically how to get a conversation to focus on that, right? Admittedly, a lot of people will say, well, that's something that I find not as easy as talking about professional challenges. And it's kind of understandable, because when you're in a business type of meeting or, in a professional setting, talking about professional challenges is quite easy, while segueing the conversation over to personal interests and passions sometimes feel like an unsurmountable obstacle. But really, that obstacle is mostly just in our heads. A good analogy that I like using is that there's a wall, but that wall is made out of, rice paper, just like the walls in a traditional home in Japan. And the beauty of these walls is that it's actually really easy to punch through it. All right. And so today I want to talk about how to basically primarily overcome that obstacle and get into the conversation, because I would argue most of us are very much capable of maintaining an intriguing conversation once you get to talk about personal interests and passions. Okay. And with that in mind, if you do feel like this, if this sort of resonates with you, you feel like it's hard to get there, then the good news is, in my view at least, the only thing that's missing is practice. You just haven't tried hard enough, not often enough. And so it doesn't come naturally to you. But ultimately, our goal has to be that moving a conversation from A to B should be as natural and as second nature as the way you breathe. And those people that listen right now that say, I don't have much of a trouble with that, they will probably report that this is as easy as breathing to them, right? And so how can we get there? Well, rule number one is you got to show a genuine interest. You got to be absolutely genuine about wanting to know about what they're passionate about. It can't be as a result of like, this is what I should do, or, to be successful in my business, I need to do it. No, you got to have an interest in this person and what the person is passionate about, because anything else will show. And when it shows, it will come across as something unreal, fake, and it probably won't open the door in the way you want. Okay, so number one, be genuinely interested. Now, the second thing you need to have is what I call your standard lead-in sentence. A lead-in sentence is nothing else but something that lets you start the conversation easier, and it is something that you're very comfortable saying. I'll give you a few examples. One is that you just say, hey, can I ask you a question? I noticed that, and then fill in the blanks, right? Or you could go and say, hey, can I ask you an unrelated question? I'm trying to learn about the most effective way to recharge or recuperate. What do you do to, get your energy back after a long work week? Right? That's sort of a example where I also put the actual interest question into it so that you get to see the whole thing. But it could go on, like, do you mind if is another sentence, and so on and so forth. So you just got to have that. It needs to feel natural. If you try it a few times out, and this is my third point, you'll get over the hump. Right? All you have to do is do it 1, 2, maybe 3 times, and all of a sudden you see how easy it is to actually get into these kinds of conversations. And that's what I mean with practice. The more you do it, the more you have different situations, some of them more challenging, some of them easy, but you will gain the confidence that almost any conversation can be moved into the area of personal interests and passions. I believe it is that easy. And the reason it is so easy is because at the end of the day, I'm almost 100% certain that you are going to be meeting with another human, right? It's either going to be, so far we haven't discovered any aliens yet, so you're going to be meeting humans, and humans have one thing in common, and that is that we all have certain passions, certain interests, and that are mostly existent in our personal lives. And that is true for no matter who you might be meeting, no matter how high up they are on the totem pole. You might be meeting with the CEO of a very large public company. This person is just a human, right? You might be meeting with a mid-level manager. That person also is just a human, and we all have interests outside of work. We have passions that we want to pursue or like to pursue, and we have one thing in common, that is that we all like talking about it. It's just something that you know for yourself, and I think it's a fundamental truth for at least most people out there, that when you get to talk about something you're passionate about, you think you had a good conversation. It makes you feel good. And that's the point that I'm making, right? So the point that I'm making really is basically see these people, whoever you're meeting, as humans, and therefore as humans that are interested in talking about passions, and therefore they'll probably be more willing than you think to have that kind of conversation. So you have your leading question or lead-in sentence. Now you need a good question that basically can trigger out all sorts of really interesting interests and passions. And we got a list of them. Let's go through a few of them. You know, my favorite one, and I already mentioned that, is like, hey, what are some of your favorite things or ways to help you recharge, to recuperate? The reason this is so powerful is because it's almost always going to lead to some form of personal interest or passion, right? Be it that the person says yoga is their thing, or some people might do kiteboarding. Other people might be into dirt biking. I don't know, right? And then at the end of the day, well, you'll sometimes hear people say, you know what, having a cup of coffee at 10 a.m. on a Sunday and reading a really good book that lets me escape into medieval England. If that's what floats their boat, that's what floats their boat. And you'll probably find that out if you ask questions like this. Another question relatively similar to that is, what did you do this weekend or last weekend? You can do that in the past, but you can also look into the future and saying, hey, are you excited about any of your upcoming plans? See what he says. There again, we plan to use our free time for things we are excited about, So I think that's very powerful. You can obviously also go into the friends and family section by saying, hey, what was one of the nicest things you recently done with your friends or with your family, right? Specifically, if you are a family person, you have children of your own, and you know that the person you're meeting with has too, it's a very high likelihood that you will actually find something in common there. Another last question I'm going to give you guys is something along the lines of what would they use with their time? So, for example, hey, if you had a full day, but that another extra full day, let's say you only have to work 4 days a week, but the condition is that you have to use it for non-work related things. What would you use it for? That'd be very interesting. Wouldn't that be intriguing to find out what people will say? And so on and so forth. The most important thing is what you have to do next, right? So I think lead-in statement combined with a question you want to use, and the fact that you need to just practice that will open up the conversation. You basically made the transition, and now you're in a topic around personal interests and passions. And now, while that conversation is going, what you need to do most is find common ground. There's nothing more powerful than common ground. Because at the end of the day, if you have a passion that you share with this other person, the likelihood that you can be meaningful, relevant, and valuable to them goes up dramatically. There's absolutely no doubt about it, right? So next step is basically use that space that you open up to talk about personal interests to find topics that you actually share with him or her in common. And very often it will almost happen naturally. We all had those things happen to us in meetings that just like popped up that way, where we didn't design the experience to lead into the personal area. Okay, so that to me is basically the most important aspect.